Merry met, virtual traveller, and welcome to Stories from Lore, a podcast that invites you to rewild yourself through story by exploring nature, folklore, and the stories it inspires. My name is Dawn Nelson, and I'm an author, consultant, and professional storyteller. Episode 4 is Water Dwellers. As you know, for this season, we are diving into the medieval bestiaries to discover the strange and familiar creatures that lie within its pages. For Water Dwellers, I'm focusing on the whale and taking a brief look at its cousin the dolphin, a very brief look at fishes. As always, as my main reference, I'm using the MS Bodley 764 Bestiary, a 13th century manuscript translated by Richard Barber. Often shield sheathing seized the mead seats, from hordes of harmers, from how many people, terrifying noble men, after he was found so needy at the start. He wrangled his remedy after, growing hale under the heavens, thriving honourably until all of them had to obey him. Those scattered about, across the whale road, must pay him tribute. That was a good king. That's a translation of one of the first verses of Beowulf, a text we have come across before in this season's episodes. And this time, I would like to draw attention to the rather wonderful kenning, frequently used in the poems of Old English and by myself, whale road. A kenning is defined as two words that go together to infer a noun. In this case, whale road is inferring the noun sea. In Old English, this is very easy to spot. It's whalrad. In relation to the whale, whal, as it is in Old English, the illustration you'll most often come across in medieval manuscripts is of a ship that has shored itself on the back of the whale. A little fire has been lit, and someone is tending to it. Needless to say, the whale does not look happy about this, and according to the text, moves. Bizarrely, the man on the whale seems unfazed by this, engaged in a little bit of surfing perhaps. However, the men on the ship feel quite differently. One of the men clings to the mast, another to the ropes, and two others look on in a sort of mock horror. It's conceivable that when men were out at sea in poor visibility and desperate for sight of land, the back of a large whale such as a blue whale or a humpback whale could indeed have looked like land. And it's possibly reports of men trying to moor ships on the back of whales that gave rise to The Whale, a poem in the Exeter Book. The Exeter Book is one of the few extant manuscripts we have containing Old English, and it's famed for its riddles and bawdy poetry. I definitely recommend checking out some of the riddles within it and the poems, and you can find them online quite easily. Here is a translation of the verse from the poem concerning the whale. Note the wonderful kennings within it. His appearance is like that of a rough boulder, as if there were tossing by the shore a great ocean reed bank begirt with sand dunes, so that seamen imagine they are gazing upon an island, and moor their high proud ships with cables to that false land. Make fast the ocean coursers at the sea's end, and, bold of heart, climb up on that island. The vessels stand by the beach, enringed by the flood. The weary-hearted sailors then encamp, dreaming not of peril. On the island they start a fire, kindle a mounting flame. The dispirited heroes, eager for repose, are flushed with joy. Now, when the cunning plotter feels that the sailors are firmly established upon him, and have settled down to enjoy the weather, the guest of ocean sinks without warning into the salt wave with his prey, and makes for the bottom, thus whelming ships and men in that abode of death. The whale is often referred to as a sea monster. Yet, other than swallowing Jonah in the Bible stories, most likely by accident, I may add, there is no other evidence that the whales of the medieval period were of particular evil intent. There is a further description in the MS Bodley 764 of how the whale rises to the surface, stays still for a period of time, and as a result, sand dunes and grasses gather upon it. Now, if you think about the barnacled skin of many whales, it is possible that if you squint and in bad visibility, this could look like sand, as I've said before, but grass definitely doesn't grow on whales, so I'm not sure what they were seeing there. They would most likely have been at sea for a long time, again, probably without a lot of food or decent water. The bestiary goes on to say that once the fire is lit, the beast dives back into the water, dragging the ship with it. In the bestiary, unlike the poem I just read, it's unclear whether this was the whale's intention all along. It seems like a bit of a risky way to catch your dinner, though, waiting for someone to light a fire on you, especially given that whale blubber is highly flammable. The same sentiment of the whale's siren-like nature is expressed in this translation of a poem from the Physiologus. The weary-hearted sailors mount the isle and, free from thought of peril, there abide. Elated on the sands they build a fire, a mounting blaze. There, light of heart, they sit, no more discouraged, eager for sweet rest. Then, when the crafty fiend perceives that men encamped upon him, making their abode, enjoy the gentle weather, suddenly, under the salty waves he plunges down. Straight to the bottom deep he drags his prey. He, guest of the ocean, in his watery haunts, drowns ships and men, and fast imprisons them with the halls of death. Such is the way of demons, devils' wiles, to hide their power, and stealthy, inveigle heedless men, inciting them against all worthy deeds, and luring them to seek for help and comfort. As we can see from these two poems, there are some repeated phrases. The building of the fire is a common motif, and the whale being referred to as a guest of the ocean seems a little odd, given that it's actually more likely to be the sailors that are the guest of the ocean. There's always the idyllic picture of these men who have spent many, many days trying to find this land, and when they finally do, they are so overcome with joy that they no longer sense the danger that is the siren whale. This imagery is further compounded in descriptions in the Bestiaries of the way that whales hunt. They open their mouth and the sweet smell entices in the fish. This imagery does not serve the whale well, as the whale then becomes conflated with the devil and devilish intentions, and so therefore becomes mixed up with the Christian concepts concerning the devil. And so it follows that if you are not a good, God-fearing Christian, then you may well be tempted by the smell of the whale's breath and end up within its belly. So there we have it. According to the medieval text, the whale was not at all just minding its own business and occasionally rising up to the surface to fill its lungs once more with air. Instead, it was a siren hunting the bedraggled and weary sailors of the medieval seas. Swimming alongside the whale in the Bestiary is its cousin, the dolphin. The dolphin doesn't seem to have quite as sinister a reputation. Its name as a kenning is merswin, which means ocean pig. Mer meaning ocean and swin meaning swine, pig. It's said that the dolphins will follow the men's voices, which follows because they would have seen them following the ships and swimming alongside them. On many of the ships, to entertain them, they probably would have played some music or sung, and therefore it is said that the dolphins will gather in shoals to listen to this music. They will also leap straight over the ship. I guess this is possible, dependent on the size of the ship. They were also very good portents of bad weather, for if swimming in front of the ship, they were said to foretell a storm. This is pretty much it for dolphins, giving us the impression that they were considered fairly benign animals in the same family as fish, which of course we know now is not actually true. The entry for fish in the MS Bodley 764 is a peculiar thing, and it says very little with a lot of words. It states that pieces is the word for fish, and comes from the word pesses, meaning cattle, and comes from the word passer, to graze. The manuscript then goes on to give something of a taxonomy lesson to the reader, pointing out that fish were named last, as they were noticed last. All the land animals were easy to see, the fish not so much. And then it goes on to say rather obviously that they were named depending on the shape, size and characteristics, etc., of the fish. This doesn't really give us much of a clue as to what the people writing the medieval bestiaries thought of fish. It's perhaps because they were fairly common. Everybody knew what a fish was. They ate fish on a Friday when they were not allowed to eat meat, as they did not consider it to be a type of meat. And so perhaps this is why the fish is just not given the attention that it truly deserves in the bestiary. These days, most of us are aware of the difference between these ocean goers: whales, dolphins, sharks, fish, tropical fish, cold water fish, saltwater fish. We know they're all different. In fact, for many, keeping fish is a hobby. There are fish tanks in many houses these days, and some people take a lot of care over their fish. Dolphins and whales have been kept in water parks, and although this fashion is fading, it still does exist in some places. And so it is that whales, dolphins and fish have gone the way of dogs almost, and become pets for humans. I'll let you decide what you think about that. Many of us, if on holiday somewhere where we could go whale watching or dolphin watching, will grab the opportunity. Because, as with much of today's wildlife, there are many species of whale and dolphin that are endangered. And so, as usual, at the end of this episode, I will speak their names into the world, and I will include a list of species in the show notes so that you can join with me. By speaking their names, we are letting them know that they are remembered, and in doing so, we can hope to aid their plight. Whales and dolphins are in a family of mammals known as cetaceans. This comes from the Latin word cetus, that refers to all large sea creatures. We may know Cetus better as a sea monster and a star constellation, and it is Cetus's story I would like to tell you next. Cetus was a fearsome beast, one of many that had not been named as such, simply called Cetus. Cetus had been in this world since before the Titans. The ancient Mesopotamians had named him first. Dragon-maned, dog-headed, fish-tailed, no one could really say what Cetus looked like. He spent his days in the depths of the oceans listening to the Nereids sing and Poseidon thunder. Cetus lay undisturbed for a millennia, until a queen named Cassiopeia was too flippant in her regard for the gods. Cassiopeia was married to Cepheus, and together they ruled Ethiopia as queen and king. It is told that Cassiopeia was a beautiful queen, and she had a daughter of equal beauty, Andromeda. The queen was proud of this fact, and claimed her daughter put the Nereids to shame with her flowing hair and brooding eyes. When Poseidon, father to the Nereids, heard this, he could not have any mere mortal claiming they are greater than a sea nymph, and so it was that he sent one of the goddess Ceto's many subjects, Cetus, to exact his revenge on the kingdom of Ethiopia. King Cepheus knew neither he nor his army could save his kingdom, and so he sought the help of an oracle. Now the words of an oracle may well be truth, but they are rarely what you want to hear, and this was no different for King Cepheus. He must sacrifice his daughter Andromeda for his kingdom. There was no other way. Cetus had been travelling for many miles, intent on his task. He rode the white foam of the whale road, passing many creatures on the way. All moved to clear his path, and none got close enough to feel the bow waves of his tail. As he neared the shores of Ethiopia, he could hear the voices of many humans gathered for the spectacle. He could hear the gasps of horror as they pointed to his serrated back, surfacing through the waves. He could hear the screams and see a woman tied to a rock. He would start with her. Nothing would stop him from his quest. The great god of the sea had sent him, and he would see to it that his will was done. As Cetus reached the rock to which Andromeda was tied, for it was indeed the king's daughter, as the oracle had foretold, he rose out of the water, seaweed hanging from his formidable fangs and froth and foam pouring out of his gaping maw. He did not see him until it was too late. Perseus, as he would be known from this moment on, the one favoured by Zeus, and the one who now held the head of the Gorgon Medusa. Medusa, another pawn in this plot of men. Cetus met his fate with grace, sliding to a halt, almost merging with the rock to which Andromeda was tied, with only just enough room for her between the two surfaces as he turned to cloud-grey granite. Cetus never saw it coming. He had not the benefit of an oracle, not the benefit of guile, not the benefit of godly alliances. They say he stands there still to this day, but he is remembered by many in the stars. And if you look to the east in the late autumn, you will see him there, a reminder to us all that our fortunes hinge on the luck of the gods. Thanks for joining me around the hearth for this episode of Stories from Lore. For more folklore and stories, you can subscribe to my Substack newsletter. Just hop over to the Substack site and search for Ceridwen's Cauldron, or use the link in the show notes. You can upgrade to paid for just £5 a month to access extended episodes in the archives, extras, and for this season, an exclusive monthly podcast for subscribers called The Story Forecast. Signing up as a paid or free subscriber is much appreciated and helps to support the podcast and my work with folklore and story. As well as Substack, you can find me on Instagram and Facebook as the Bard Dawn. Reviews are also gratefully received. I hope to see you again soon, as I'd love to tell you another story. Until next time, toodle pip. Blue whale, grey whale, North Atlantic right whale, North Pacific right whale, fin whale, sei whale, beluga whale, vaquita, dugong, Hector's dolphin, Yangtze finless porpoise, Ganges river dolphin, Indus river dolphin, Irrawaddy dolphin, Atlantic humpback dolphin, Franciscana, Chilean dolphin, South Asian river dolphin, Indian Ocean humpback dolphin, Indo-Pacific humpback dolphin. You are remembered.